Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today I'm here with Ben Bennett of Omnitude. Ben, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for coming out and sharing your background with us today. What was your background before joining Omnitude?
It was a pretty simple path, really. So I've been in the commercial side of businesses all my life, anything from telesales, field sales, product sales, all the way through to more strategic and development roles in business. And I eventually launched my own company, a consultancy, which focused on startups, essentially enabling businesses to understand their value proposition and then take it to market. And it was on that journey that I actually met Chris Painter, the CEO of Omnitude, at his previous company. And that's how the introduction between the two of us actually was made.
So what led you to innovate in this particular sector that you're in? Why did you choose this sector over others?
So the background, there's a bit of a history in terms of where Omnitude came from. So Pixel by Pixel was and still is a design and build web agency, but behind the scenes does lots of integrations, platform integrations, moving data around, working with some of the largest firms in the world. And there was a lot of time and expense from the client side on getting these systems to talk to each other to enable a smooth transition, which I think a lot of enterprise companies will find. And then Chris, our CEO, was very interested in the likes of Bitcoin, did some mining earlier in the days of cryptocurrencies. And actually what that led to was a better understanding and working knowledge of what blockchain can do, and saw a huge opportunity to use the technology to underpin a middleware layer, if you like, to enable systems to be integrated and talk to each other far more efficiently. And from a very basic level, it started out as an integration layer, as a middleware layer, purely as an e-commerce play. But what has since evolved into the proposition which we have right now, which is ultimately the only patented blockchain middleware layer globally that's got actually a native self-sovereign identity element to it. So as some of your investors and audience may well know, that the technology is a very innovative piece of tech, but it's very fast-paced and changing all the time. So we've seen an opportunity to become that middleware to enable any blockchain business in any vertical be adopted or utilized by enterprise and smaller companies further down the line when we open up our ecosystem to a open developer platform as well.
Let's talk about the state of the cryptocurrency market and the use of blockchain. Where are we with it today? We've come out of the heady, hyper model of 2017 and now into 2018, and now we're into 2019. What is the state of the market now?
Well, I think if you're looking purely at cryptocurrencies, then I think obviously the market's gone through a big correction. We're seeing now those businesses that have raised funds through cryptocurrencies are either delivering against their promise and succeeding, and those will prevail. And those that were more a bit of a money grab are really struggling because the lack of product in place, the lack of a skill set to take this product to market. And we're seeing a lot of victims of this a correction in the market. So what we do as a business is focus purely on the tech. There is very little in terms of a crypto play for us. I mean, the system will use a native token to operate, but that's about as far as we need to be involved. But equally, we are going to enable other solutions so that those that do want to use cryptocurrencies can. But if you don't want to use cryptocurrencies, you can still interact with our platform from a very traditional business level, but still reap the benefits of these other blockchain solutions that are out there, as well as our own offering. So I think certainly from a personal perspective and from an Omnitude perspective, we'd probably separate the technology and the cryptocurrencies as two different conversations. But I think it's only been a good thing for the industry, and the idea of making a quick buck off the back of some ICO investments and then cashing out quickly, I think those days are gone, thankfully. And then the real use case, the real value of what the technology can deliver is now going to come to fruition. And people who ever doubted the technology because of its association with a dark or darker side of cryptocurrencies can actually see real value in the real world.
How much money do you think is being invested today in the middleware market of the blockchain space? Blockchain itself is very big. A lot of things are still going on there. That's great. But if you get back to the sector you're in, which is enabling applications to talk to each other, how much do you think is going on in that direction?
Hardly anything. To the best of our knowledge, we are one of, if not the only, middleware layer to enable blockchain technologies. So your incumbents, the likes of SAP, Oracle, who have had these middleware layers and have grown very successful businesses off the back of them for decades, haven't made the move, to the best of our knowledge, to enable this technology. And while I think everyone's trying to build their own solutions and certainly have blockchain on the radar, it's not their primary focus right now. So we've actually spoken at events at Oracle as an example and spoken about specifically what we're doing. A fantastic scenario arrived where we were talking about what we're doing as a business play and why that's going to benefit enterprise and different businesses alike. And we had a question from the crowd that said, why would you want to enable middleware layer for blockchain solutions? And before having an opportunity to answer it for myself, actually somebody from Oracle stepped in, gave a very similar answer of, well, why wouldn't you? And if that's not credibility enough about, going down the right path, then I don't know what is. But I think it's an exciting space. And rather than be a singular stovepipe solution that a lot of these companies are, and that's their business model, fantastic. We want to be the enabler of those. So it's not just a case of utilizing one piece of tech or one solution and having heavy integration fees. It's about making sure that anyone can adopt this technology, both protect their customers and consumers, generate new opportunities commercially for themselves, but ultimately have a really easy play. So to answer your question directly in terms of what sort of money is being invested in the blockchain middleware, I guess to the best of our knowledge, it's whatever's coming our way right now. I think middleware is a big opportunity, and there hasn't been much innovation in the middleware space for many years. And there hasn't been a big release of a piece of tech like this that I'm aware of.
So what are the major challenges in bringing a middleware product to market in the blockchain space? What are the barriers you're facing there?
Well, I think from a technical perspective, it's about understanding what's out there in terms of what you build upon and how you have a proposition that ultimately is scalable and future-proof. We've managed to do that by running our platform on Hyperledger Fabric. And then we actually have a hybrid blockchain platform, which also utilizes Hyperledger Indy and the Stellar protocol as well from a transaction perspective. So we've done some very unique developments and creations with our blockchain solutions within identity and within middleware. So from a tech perspective, we need to be quite creative in how we set ourselves up for the next 5, 10, 20 years. But in terms of the adoption of it, blockchain is still very much either confused or looked down upon. And I don't really believe that there is a broad enough education on the benefits for enterprise. There's a piece of research done by Deloitte recently that surveyed a vast number of businesses, and 95% of the respondents have suggested that they have or will have an interest in utilizing blockchain. And while that's a really reassuring fact, certainly for a business like ours, it doesn't necessarily tell the story of the understanding of the capability. And I think we've got a long way to go before people are really confident in their own understanding of what the technology can do and how it can benefit their own business and their customers.
The blockchain space, there's many risks. There's regulatory, there's technical, there's incumbents. There's a lot of things going on there. For the middleware component, what risks do you face most often? Is it regulatory, or is it technical, or is it something else?
So I would probably say it's going to be technical. The way you've got to look at maintaining a first mover advantage is making sure your product works, it delivers, and it's received positively. And it's about staying at the forefront of that innovation and that cutting edge. The landscape is moving so fast, and we're really fortunate enough to have some very clever people within our team, far more brainy than myself, actually create these solutions. And I think as long as we're continually doing our research, not getting comfortable and resting on our laurels of some of our recent successes and striving to innovate all the time, then we'll be okay. And I think, there's enough space for a lot of players to come in and play. And actually, the way that we're doing business is very much an open door and transparent. So it's not about us creating a business, keeping our secrets under lock and key and preventing anyone else from playing in our playground. What we want to do is create something that is effective and efficient, that allows any business, any size, any scale to create a decentralized application and deploy. And so for us, it's a technical play. I think with everything regulatory, we need to ensure that that is absolutely covered and adhered to. But that's just the purpose of running a business. We need to make sure we're being true to ourselves and protecting everybody that's using the system and the future customers of that also, but primarily the technology, I would say.
So what has Omnitude done so far in this field?
So we've actually progressed rapidly. You might hear an element of surprise in my voice. That's probably unfair on our team, but what we've actually done is we've raised some capital. We've actually got a product. So we have a Omnitude ID, which is, as I said, it's a self-sovereign identity using Hyperledger Indy and the Stellar protocol as well. And this is going to be built into an e-commerce company's core offering. So the company called CS Cart, who's one of our partners, and they provide essentially the CMS, the shop for multiple retailers and vendors. They have 35,000 stores across 170 plus locations, and Omnitude ID will be available to all of those companies immediately. Now, at a very basic level, it enables a single sign-on, which is not new or unique. What it will also do is give the individual who creates their identity an opportunity to own their data. So they will be able to store their preferences, address, payment details, apparel sizes, flight preferences, whatever you can think of, we can put in those components. They choose what they want the retailer or the vendor to see. And by sharing up-to-date current information with that vendor, there is a transaction. So they get to earn against sharing their personal information. So where you've got the large social media firms, you've got the large search engines, and we won't go into naming and shaming. I think we all know who they are after various scandals and fines recently. But ultimately, these are businesses that take your data and will farm you and will sell that data to advertisers and other means. What we're trying to do is give the power back to the person who owns that data, and that's you, the individual. But it's actually a very much a three-way benefit. So the individual gets to protect their own data and identity. They can earn against sharing that identity, and that could be reward or straight out payment. All depends on what the retailer wants to do. The retailer has very live and active and up-to-date information. So from a marketing and conversion perspective, we should see vast improvements. And then us as a business providing a solution to protect the consumer, to commercialize the customer, we actually generate a revenue through those data transactions as well. So it's a virtuous triangle. So we have the identity system, as I said, in beta about to be rolled out. And then in terms of the middleware layer, we call that Omnitude Core. That is being used or about to be used across a number of projects. We have a government contract in Europe. We are about to start a project with one of the world's largest FMCG businesses, plugging into a supply chain and understanding everything from the yield of a crop through to agricultural data, through to giving all of the actors in a supply chain their identity and automating a process and ultimately giving people significantly more real-time transparency on that data as well. And we're also working with the Williams Formula One team. Any motorsport fans listening, we're working with these guys to utilize the middleware layer to do some form of version controlling on some of their systems. And I won't go into any detail around that because obviously it's a technical advantage for a racing team. But we're working on some very different projects, which just purely demonstrates the broad capabilities of the middleware play as our business, really.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
I think, I'd be interested in coming back onto perception of the blockchain space. And if we look at the financial side of it, so we are a software company above anything else in the most traditional sense. It's just a lot of businesses and financial institutions consider us challenging or difficult. So when we first started, we had a significant issue with managing to get a bank account because a lot of the banks would look at us as a cryptocurrency business, which we're not. It's just an element of what we do. And I think for me, it's about changing that perception, helping people see that this technology is here for good, can benefit almost every type of business, if not every type of business that's already in place. And it's about trying to take away that fear. Some companies will want to maintain control and keep information private, and this technology actually still enables you to do that. Just because we've got distributed ledgers and public information, it doesn't mean you have to bear all to all parties and people. So I think just a very passionate plea, really, to anybody listening that has negative views on the topic or the subject matter of blockchain to do some research and even reach out to us. Although we are in the space, we can be incredibly objective about what we're doing and what we're using. And I think we want to play a key part of that education to demonstrate that this is something that isn't going away and it can be used for a force for good and in all and every scenario. And that's how we want to be. We want to be helping and changing the views on the technology as it stands.
Well, great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
You can email generically. You can email finance@omnitude.tech, and I pick up that. Our Chief Financial Officer picks up that, and Chris Painter, our CEO, picks up those emails. You can find us at omnitude.tech, and on that website, there is also an opportunity to find all of our socials, everything from LinkedIn through to our community Telegram channels, Twitter, and hear about all of the latest information that's coming, which actually includes some significant announcements coming soon, which you will see us working alongside in partnership and contractually with some of the biggest companies in the world, which we're incredibly proud of. So come and find us. Please don't be shy. Feel free to ask us any question, either privately or publicly. We'll do our best to give you an honest and decent answer.
Well, thank you for joining us today and sharing your thoughts about the blockchain world and Omnitude as well, and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much for your time.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.